Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, Digital Tools That Champion Diversity. Please use the chat area that you see to the right of the video on the YouTube page to tell us who you are, where you're from, and your role in education while we wait for just a few housekeeping items that I need to go over for us to get started. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use that chat area that I just mentioned to the right of this live stream. And we'll work on either our presenter will answer them for you today or we will follow up with you, or I'll try to answer them in the chat as well. An on-demand version of this webinar will be available using the same YouTube link that was sent to you via email immediately after the webinar is over. You can also visit forward-edge.net/webinars with an S on the end for all of our webinar recordings. Feel free to share what you're learning on Twitter with the hashtag FEK12. All right, so let's get started. My name is Katie Seamer, and I am the Director of Curriculum and Technology Integration here at Forward Edge. And our main presenter today is none other than Michael Rausch. He is one of our rockstar integration specialists. We'll be sharing links in that chat area to the right of the YouTube page as Michael's talking about them. And so a little bit about who we are. Forward Edge is a K-12 technology company. And when I say that, I mean that we do all things technology, from selling hardware to helping supplement on-site technicians to setting up and managing the wireless and infrastructure. We really are a one-stop shop for technology needs, but we're missing one little piece. So about 3.5 years ago, we started looking at the closing that gap with the Curriculum and Technology Integration Department. So in our department, we all have former teaching experience, and we actually are boots on the ground working with teachers, helping them better use technology so that magic can happen. So in the C&I department, we call it, in short, we provide professional development and serve as on-site integration coaches, as well as visioning and planning services. So now, without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Michael to start our presentation.
Thank you very much, Katie. We are going to talk about something that's pretty near and dear to my heart for several reasons. Digital tools that champion diversity. Technology really has a great opportunity not only to make it possible for just the general student to do things they've never been able to do before, but for some of our students who struggle to do things that just really were not possible for them to do before, and to allow them to achieve at greater levels. So we're going to take a look at a lot of different tools throughout the course of this short webinar today. I want to take a look, though, at some of the ISTE standards for educators that we'll really be focusing on, that'll stand out in some of these. When you start putting these into practice, you will find as an educator, you're doing a lot that is included in the ISTE standards on the educator as a learner, the educator as a designer, and the educator as a facilitator, facilitating learning with technology to support student achievement. On the student side, you will find that as you use a lot of these tools, the students are following a lot of the standards as well and becoming empowered learners, becoming knowledge constructors, and becoming creative communicators, communicating and expressing themselves creatively for a variety of purposes using digital platforms. I'm going to divide things into a few different areas, but the primary one that we want to focus on, we're going to focus the most of our time and has the most tools in it, just because of the nature of what this does for us with using technology with students, is using technology to support perception skills in our students. And at this point, I want to take a couple of moments to show some new features that are available to really help students with this. And some of these that you may be familiar with, but have changed a little bit, and some of them are new enough that you may not have heard of them yet. Very first one I want to show you, Google Slides has now put together a live captioning system. Now, this was still rolling out, so a few people found this, and a few people were like, where is this? I don't have it yet. This was on kind of a gradual rollout. Most, if not all of you that are on education domains should have this available to you now. When you present on a Google Slides show, one of your options in that menu bar, that hovering menu bar that floats, next to the pointer, there is a new option for captions. And if you click that button for live captions during your Google Slides presentation, Google transcribes what you say and adds it to your slides as you speak. This live captioning is still, again, fairly new. So if you plan to use it, I'm going to suggest that you practice with it first. Make sure that it works the way you're expecting it to. And I've also found that it works a whole lot better when you're using a headset mic or something that's very, very close on you. A Bluetooth mic would probably be best for this, because then you can wander around. You're not tied straight directly to your computer, especially if you're using some sort of a remote to advance your slides. Also note that this is not to the point yet where it's going to automatically add punctuation for you. And it's not going to work on a dictation kind of system, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But this can be a great addition for you to make sure that the text of what you say is appearing in front of people who need to be able to see it as well as hear it. Live captioning should be available for you in Google Slides right now. Also, many of you are familiar with this, but there have been some changes made to this one as well. YouTube provides an option for subtitles or closed captioning to be brought up for videos. Many organizations that put their material on YouTube are now providing closed captions for those videos that you can bring up for yourself. So if you're having students watch videos for various reasons, they can bring up the captions. If the producer of the video has not provided the captions, YouTube will actually try to generate those itself. Now, the accuracy of those, sometimes it's pretty good, sometimes it's not so great, but it will try to generate those itself if the publisher has not created those. And so those are available for you to use on any YouTube video. But folks were asking for that kind of captioning to be available on other videos. So if you have video files that are in your Google Drive, let's say you have video files that you've created that you have just in your Google Drive, and so you share them with students and you want them to watch them from your Google Drive instead of putting them on YouTube. Before, you could not put caption tracks on those. Now you can. So you find that video file in Google Drive, right click or your alternate click on that file, and the context menu that comes up, one of your options there is to manage caption tracks. That will bring up your video with the option to add caption tracks. You can add multiple caption tracks, and the point of doing that is to provide caption tracks in different languages. So if you need to provide an English and maybe a Spanish version or a French version of the audio for your video, you can add caption tracks in multiple languages. Those caption tracks, you can upload them from a text file that you have. You can also identify a text file or a Google Docs file that you have in your Google Drive to add those as caption tracks. You do not have to do the synchronization yourself. Google will take care of the task of listening to your video and matching up the caption track, the words in the caption track that you provided, with where those words occur in your video. So with those new ones that are available out there, and those are probably some of the biggest examples of material that teachers are providing to students that they have to find a way to do something extra to help students who have difficulty either with hearing or with a cognitive issue where they need to be able to read the material as they're hearing it spoken. That is going to take care of a lot of those issues if you look for the material that has captions, or you provide those captions in the material that you are providing for your students. Now we're going to take a look at some Chrome extensions. So if you're using the Chrome browser, or if your students are using Chromebooks, Chrome is built so that you can add extensions to it. You can extend the capability that the browser has and make it do some things, some specific things for students who need the extra help. One of my favorites of all time is the dictionary extension by Google. And what this extension allows you to do is, let's say you're reading some text online and there are some terms in there that you just don't know. In the past, if you were reading a traditional book, you would have to stop reading the book and go find a dictionary and look up the term, and then go back to the book that you were reading. In online material, you historically, hey, you had to stop reading the page that you were on and open a new window or open a new tab and go look up the word that you didn't know. But once you add this dictionary extension to Google Chrome, this turns every word on the page into something clickable, so that you can click on that word and double click on the word, and if it has the definition for it, it will bring up the definition in line. The dictionary also goes the extra step. If you see the little speaker icon next to the word, it will provide a natural voice pronunciation of that word for you. So when you're reading, this puts support right in line for the reader, right where they need it in the material that they're reading. They don't have to be singled out by having a separate computer or a separate piece of software that has to run on a certain computer for them to get this material. You set up this extension for the student. They use it when they need it, and nobody else has to see them using the extra piece of support that can single out folks who are struggling with reading. Another tool that can really be helpful that I love is the Mercury Reader. We've all looked at news sites that tend to be a little cluttered with other material going on, that you have to kind of hunt a little bit to find. Once you get past the headline, is where is the text of this article actually starting? In some cases, there'll be a video, and that video might relate to the article, or it might not. It might be an ad that starts playing during your page that you're trying to look at. And so Mercury Reader is a great way to clean up some of that stuff and boil a page down just to the actual important material. So when I've loaded this news page from CNN, and I run Mercury Reader turns it into something much more readable. It takes the headline for me, leaves the byline there, puts in a placeholder where that video was, and then starts with the actual content of the article. Some more options that are made available then to me on this are that I can change the text size. I can use a small, medium, or large text size. I can change the typography, the font that's used, from a serif font to a sans serif font if I need to. I can also choose a theme, whether I want it to be a light background with dark text or a dark background with light text. Mercury Reader does a great job of taking busy web pages and boiling them down just to the information that I need to kind of take away some of those distracting pieces. Another tip, if you're also one of those people who likes to print articles to use for different things, this can save you a ton of paper. I've seen Mercury Reader take a 7 or 8 page printed article and cut it down to maybe 2 or 3 because it took out all the extra stuff that really didn't relate to the article that was on the sides. Another great tool to support students who need some additional support is called Select and Speak. Now, this one is for the student who just maybe needs, they need some things read to them in order to help them make sense of what's going on. And it's not always convenient to have a human reader available for those students. And they're not always going to ask for that when they need it. So Select and Speak gives students the option of taking a web page and finding some material that they need to hear aloud in order to help them understand it better. They select that text, bring up their context-sensitive menu, and choose Read with Select and Speak. And they will get a very natural voice pronunciation of that sentence. There are some options in there as well for the type of voice that can be used. A couple of different male voices, a couple of different female voices that can be used in there. You can change the rate a little bit. And so you can actually have the student get some reading support very targeted where they know they need it with Select and Speak. Now, for students who need the entire screen read to them all the time, either because of a visual acuity issue, or because they have a they have a cognitive issue that prevents them from being able to just attend to something to read it. Google has created a screen reader called ChromeVox. ChromeVox is available for the Chrome browser for PC and Mac. It's also available out of the box now for Chromebooks. And ChromeVox is their fully functioning screen reader option. ChromeVox really does read everything on the screen. This is designed to be the way that people who cannot see at all would be able to operate a Chromebook and know what's going on. So it really does read everything. There is a long set of keyboard shortcuts that operate everything in ChromeVox. And so if you find that a Chromebook is suddenly just talking a lot to you, then ChromeVox may have been turned on by mistake, and you can get in there and turn that off. You can also change how much it reads, how fast it reads, and the voices that it uses as well. ChromeVox is a great option for students who otherwise would not have a way to really be able to operate their Chromebook due to a visual acuity issue. Visual acuity can also be an issue for students just because of the contrast or a lack of contrast with material that's on the page. So high contrast is another extension that can really help with certain material on certain websites. Once high contrast is in, here's our Leonardo da Vinci article again. And high contrast starts as disabled, but then once you enable it, you have several different options that you can bring up. One of them is this inverted color. So it takes the colors that were on the page and just inverts them, gives you the photo negative of what's on there. And sometimes that can increase the contrast enough to help students be able to distinguish and work with the material that's there. You also get an option for increased contrast. And so this is the increased contrast option. And here you can see that the original is on the left and the increased contrast version is on the right. That can be enough for some students to manage to perceive the material better. There's also an option for grayscale, so that you can set the website so that all the color is stripped out, so that you can see the grayscale version. That's very helpful for some students, especially students who have various versions of color blindness and may struggle with distinguishing some of the different colors that would appear on the screen. You can do that same grayscale with the inverted or photo negative version. And then there's also a yellow on black version, and that one can be a lot easier on the eyes for some folks than the inverted grayscale. It really increases the contrast, but it keeps a low intensity version of the colors that are available so that it's not as wearing on the eyes to be able to read the material for a longer amount of time. High contrast can be a great way to help some students who just can't read the material for a long time off of the screen. There's also another great extension called OpenDyslexic. And what this extension does is it just takes the OpenDyslexic font and applies it to the website that you're viewing. And you can easily switch this on and off just with a switch. So once I've added the OpenDyslexic extension, I click the switch to turn that on, and it takes the text on the website and changes it to the OpenDyslexic font. Let's take a look at what those look like next to each other. Now, many people look at those and they say, oh, the one on the right is far less readable. The one on the left is what I would prefer to read in. Some people who have been diagnosed with dyslexia report that the version on the right is much easier for them to read. The key seems to be that the font on the right has taken every letter, every character that is a mirror image of itself. So like O's and I's that look the same when you flip them horizontally. And it has changed them slightly so that they're no longer symmetrical. And that seems to help some folks. Again, this is one that if you have a student who is struggling with some of those, you might try it and let them see if it helps them. If it helps them, great. If not, you just turn it back off. Another option for those who are struggling to read, this one, I love this one, the Beeline Reader. This takes a slightly different approach in that it color codes the lines, but it color codes the end of one line to match the beginning of the next line. This can help with eye tracking. And so students who may skip lines when they're reading, and so that seriously interferes with their comprehension because they're missing large chunks of the material. An extension like Beeline Reader can help with eye tracking. And just that process of fixing their eye tracking to make sure that they don't miss material as their eyes are moving down the page can really help with comprehension because the student is actually getting all the material. There are several options for color themes within Beeline Reader. The newest version of Beeline Reader also adds the OpenDyslexic font as an option. So you can use the Beeline Reader to do both auto coloring of the lines and add the OpenDyslexic font. So if you have a student who needs both, you may be able to do them both with Beeline Reader. Please note, the free version of Beeline Reader only lets you do this on a limited number of pages per day. If you want to be able to do this on unlimited pages per day, you do need to buy a premium version of Beeline Reader. Another one that's been around for a while, but I'm still amazed at the number of people who either don't know about it or don't know everything that it can do, is optical character recognition built into Google Drive. Every teacher that's been teaching for a while has those books or those pages, something that they have that the only way that they have it is on paper. That they don't have a good electronic form of it. One of my favorites is this book, and if you teach in Ohio and you teach literature, this is a wonderful book to use to reference Ohio places near Ohio. This book is called Paddle to the Sea. And I don't have an electronic version of this book. Every place that I've ever looked, there is not an electronic version of this book available. The illustrations in it are gorgeous. And so I took one page of this book and I've taken that and I actually scanned it. I just used my iPad to take a picture of that page of the book and then put that picture, that JPEG image, in my Google Drive. Then, once that picture is in my Google Drive, there you see it, Paddle to the Sea, chapter 14.jpg. And if I just double click on that, it's going to open it as an image. And nothing can read the text out of that image very easily. So we need to do a process called OCR, optical character recognition. So to do this within Google Drive, this is built in. You don't need to add anything to do this. Right click or do your alternate, command click to get your context sensitive menu in Google Drive. Point to open with, and then tell it to open it in Google Docs. It will work for a little bit. It takes it a few minutes or it can take it up to a minute or two to do this, to try to read all the text out of your document. But what you get then is a new Google Doc. And the name of the Google Doc is the same as the image that you started with. But now what happens is the very top of your Google Doc, it inserts the image. Below the image, it takes the text that it was able to read and adds it as text to the end of your Google Doc. So now I can take that text and do anything that I could normally do with the text that's in a word processing document. I can change the size. I can change the font. I can change the color. I can change the background color. And so all of those great things that I can do with flexible electronic text, I can do with that inflexible fixed text I had on paper by using OCR that's already available for me in Google Drive. A great way to pair this with another option to really help students even more is to use the Read and Write toolbar for Google Chrome. Read and Write has a premium version and a free version, so your students can use the free version and they can use the free version forever. The free version includes text-to-speech capability inside of Google Docs. Now, I remember we already talked about select and speak earlier, and so you might be saying, well, why wouldn't I just use select and speak? Select and speak works great on standard web pages. Select and speak does not work so well inside of the text in a Google Doc. Read and Write for Google Chrome does a fantastic job of being able to read text inside of a Google Doc. It goes the additional step of highlighting words as it speaks, word by word. You also have controls inside of this for changing the voice that's being used. So you can find a little more comfortable to listen to voice. Most of the voices are pretty natural sounding, so that you don't have that metallic robotic sounding voice reading the words to you. Also, don't forget, if you did not know this already, if you are a teacher, you can have, from the Text Help Company, you can have a free subscription to all of the premium features of both the Read and Write toolbar and their Equatio tool, which is a very similar tool, but it is for math terminology. It lets you do text to math as you would do or speech to text, speech to math as you would do speech to text. And so it is a great tool for math teachers who want to be able to write math symbols within Google Docs, but it's really difficult to do if you don't have a good tool to do it. And so Equatio is a great way to use either speaking or to use handwriting recognition to add math terminology and math symbols, even higher math symbols, into Google Docs. It also works great for chemistry symbols as well. So Read and Write does fantastic for the English language arts side. Equatio is great for the science and math side, to be able to add that material both to Google Docs and to Google Forms. With your teacher account, you can get a subscription to those premium features for free. Okay, so now we've talked about a lot of different tools that support perception skills. We're going to talk about a few tools that support organization and performance skills now. One of my favorites for supporting organization skills is the super simple highlighter. There are mountains of evidence out there about how much it helps students with their reading comprehension when they are given strategies to use, effective strategies to use in highlighting the material that they're reading. Well, highlighting works great when you are reading off of paper or out of a book. Highlighting has sometimes been a struggle when we try to put that onto the computer screen, though, and making sure that really works. So the super simple highlighter is my favorite Chrome extension for this. When I'm reading text, any selectable text that I have online, I can highlight some text, and then I bring up my super simple highlighter, and I can pick from one of the 7 colors that it gives me available and highlight that text. So now here is that same page that I was looking at earlier, but I've gone through and I've highlighted the material with different colors. I might be using these different colors to answer different questions. I might already have some questions, and so I'm highlighting with different colors to relate to the different questions that I've been asked to look up inside of this material. And so I use my highlighter, my super simple highlighter, to highlight all of this material. Once that's done, then now I have to be able to do something with it. And I don't have we don't have a lot of color printers available. Those aren't just sitting around everywhere for us to be able to use. And if I was going to print this material, I might as well just use plain highlighters on it anyway. But the super simple highlighter then lets me collect all of my highlights that I've taken. I can sort them by time. In other words, the order that I made the highlights. I can sort them by how the material appears in the page. I could also sort them by color. And then I can decide what I want to do with all of this material that I have highlighted if I need to use it for something else. Let's go take a look now at that Leonardo da Vinci article that we've looked at a couple times already today. And let's say I need to highlight some material out of it. So I've highlighted some material to relate to some different questions that I need to know about Da Vinci. I can collect those highlights, sort them by time, by when I highlighted them, or I can sort them by color, or I can sort them by how they appeared in the page. And then I can open a new tab with them. Now I have just my highlights put together on a separate tab, and the title at the top of this tab at the top of this page is a link back to the original version of this article. So I still have my link back to the original version, and now I just have my highlighted material pulled out for me so that it's a great way to organize and pull that material together into a little bit more manageable form. Now let's take a look at a couple of tools that help support performance skills for students. We've done a lot to try to help students get information into them. We've done some things to kind of help students organize the information that we've been giving to them. Now we need them to provide some sort of artifact of learning for us. And so there are a couple of tools that we've got here that I really love for helping all students be able to do this effectively. And one of my absolute favorites now is an online application called Seesaw. Whatever kind of devices you're using, if you have laptops available, if you have Windows laptops available, if you're using Macs, if you're using Chromebooks, if you're using iPads, if you are using Kindles, for goodness sakes, you can use the Seesaw application. This is an online journaling and portfolio application to help students show you what they know. To get started in Seesaw, they've made it very simple for students to get started. So you can use this with pretty young ages. So you can get started with Seesaw, and you have the students go there. They'll click on I'm a student. The students sign in. If they are on Chromebooks and they're ready to sign in with Google, no problem. They click on sign in with Google and they are in and they're ready to go. Or if you don't want them to have to hassle with all of that kind of sign in, you as the teacher, when you create your account, you can create a class and generate either a text code or a QR code for students to sign in. When you provide that text code, the students can just join the class and enter the code that you've provided to them. Or they can use the camera on their device to put the QR code inside of that blue box where the camera shows up and hold it there, and it will log them into the class based on that QR code. Here's what one of those looks like. When you as the teacher create a class, you can decide if you want students to log in with their email address or if you want them to log in with the text or QR code. You want to be careful about sharing these with students. Obviously, I have made these long enough ago that they have expired now. So if you try to use that to get into my class, you won't be able to. But I have been able to put those together so that students can get into my class without having to do a lot of logging in. I have also in the past taken that QR code. That's just an image, so you can copy that. I've copied that and put it into a table or something in Google Docs and printed a whole set of them so that I can hand out little cards to my students that they can hold up in front of their camera to get logged into the class. Once the class is logged in, they have a portfolio system that they can use to add material for me. They can add material to their journal in a lot of different ways. They can use the device camera to take a photo or to take a video. They can make a drawing. They can add a file. If they have a file, say in Google Drive, or if they're using an iPad and need to get a file out of the camera roll, they can get a file there. They can do a note, which is just a very simple word processor that comes up for them to be able to type a short note. That word processor, depending on your device, also has a microphone capability on it so that you can do speech to text. To type that note as well. If you just need the student to provide a link to something, maybe you've had the students doing something on Adobe Spark, or and you want them to, when they finish, they have to provide the link for you to the material that they made. You can do that here as well. So the students get this wide variety of ways that they can post items to their student journal. Let's take a look now. I want to show you some that some sixth graders that I work with did recently. They had a project going on where they had to create hydrocarbon models out of mini marshmallows and toothpicks. Now, so when they created their models, they had to use Seesaw to document the model that they made. So they took a picture of the model that they made and labeled it with what kind of molecule they created. So you see the students were kind of working in groups. They would put a model together and they would take a picture of it and they would label it. As they're creating these and submitting them to the class feed, I, as the teacher, get notices about all those. I approve them for the class feed, and then everybody in the course can see what everybody else was making. They started with some easy ones, like you see in the middle, the ethane and the methane, which were pretty simple hydrocarbons. But then they had to get into some more complex ones, the propane molecule in the upper right, or the benzene molecule all the way in the left, which we only told them what the chemical form. By the time they got there, we only told them what the chemical formula was. We didn't tell them what the name was. They had to go do their own research to find out what the common name of that molecule was, and label it for us. So because they labeled all of these things and put them into into the Seesaw portfolio platform, the teachers were able to go through and look at everybody's material during the work, but then also after the work as well. And the students were able to see each other's good work as well. Seesaw is a great way to let students really show you what they've learned and show you what they know. Another great tool is this voice typing in Google Docs. If you have not used this one yet, this one can save you and it can save your students a ton of typing and a ton of time, and it can really change the way you write. Inside of a Google Doc, go to Tools and turn on voice typing. You need a microphone to do this. There is a microphone, very likely, that's built into your laptop or your Chromebook. Some of those microphones work pretty well. Some of those microphones do not work so well. If you're going to get a headset mic to use with this, I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions that I have found to be very useful in this. One is I always get a USB headset mic when I'm going to do this. When you get a USB headset mic, the USB has its own sound card in it. So you are using the USB, or you're using the sound card from the USB headset instead of the sound card that is built into your device. So oftentimes you'll get a better sound recording that way. I also look for a headset that has a microphone with a mute switch on it, because especially if you tend to get interrupted, or if maybe you have a cold or something going on and you need to cough, you can hit that mute switch, and as soon as you hit that mute switch, it's not listening anymore. So that you can cough, you can talk to somebody else, whatever else you need to take a drink, water, whatever you need to do that, and then hit the mute switch to come back on. Voice typing does require a little bit different way of talking, though. It is more of a true dictation style speech to text system. So I'm going to demonstrate just a second here without it showing up on your screen. If I want to use voice typing, comma, I have to speak all the punctuation I want to use, period. Otherwise, comma, it's a very effective way for me to speak instead of typing, exclamation point, new paragraph. All right, so that is kind of an example of the way that I would need to talk if I wanted voice typing to work for me. Some of the material, like capitalizing the beginning of a sentence and doing some of those things are going to happen automatically, but it will not automatically add punctuation for me. I have to tell it all the punctuation that I want to add. But this can be a very nice way to help with typing. Most folks I know can talk a lot faster than they can type. So if you just need to get ideas out, voice typing is a great way to do it. Also, a lot of students, their spoken vocabulary is a lot larger than their typed or written vocabulary. So when you allow students to use voice typing, you're not cheating at all. You may be opening up a lot of vocabulary that the student would use when they speak that they wouldn't necessarily try to use when they're typing or writing. They will speak words they don't know how to write or type because they may be hesitant to write or type that word that they don't know how to spell. Voice typing can be a great way to help students express themselves in ways that they're just not comfortable doing when they have to do it with typing or handwriting. In all of these tools that we've looked at today, I just want to remind you on everything that universal design benefits all. When we really take the time to make sure that every student has the way that makes the most sense for them to receive the material and for them to organize the material and for them to perform, to give the material back to us, when we make those options available, when we build that flexibility in, universal design really benefits every one of our students. Take a look back through it at one or two of these tools that we've designed. Decide where you've got some students that might be able to benefit from it. Try it, put it into place, try some of these things and see what happens with your students, with their performance on receiving, organizing, and getting material back to you to show them what they've learned. Thank you.
All right, Michael, thank you so much for all of those great ideas to make learning more accessible for our kids. So those of you still tuning in with us, if you have any other questions for Michael, please feel free to chime in. Michael, I think I answered this one while you were finishing up, but Sarah asked us what type of device are they using to take the picture? I believe it was when you were talking about Seesaw.
When I'm talking about Seesaw, yeah. As long as they, whatever device they're using this on, so like here where I'm working, some students have Chromebooks. A lot of the students have Chromebooks that have a camera built into them that they use to take that picture. Some students, they have like a classroom set of iPads that's available. It's really whatever camera is available. It doesn't have to be a built-in camera either. We've also done this in situations where we've taken a USB document camera and plugged it into the laptop or the Chromebook that the students were using, and we've been able to use like an HD document camera that's been added to the device as well. Any camera that's either added to or that's built into the device on iOS, Android, Chromebooks, Mac, PC, any camera that's attached to those will work with Seesaw.
Awesome. Thank you. Good. Then I did answer it correctly. So for those of you who tuned in, thanks so much for taking time out of your Wednesday afternoon to be with us today. If you have anything that you'd like to share, any last minute questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat while we're wrapping up. And just a couple of quick things. We have a integration audit that we do for teachers. So those of you who are responsible for, planning PD, whether it's technology integration or other curriculum initiatives, we have a pretty big survey that we do to analyze and kind of show you where the gaps are. All of your teachers would take it and students, and then we give you a written report with near and long-term recommendations on some things that you can do moving forward. So that's another service that we offer. One other thing that I want to mention today, a lot of these were Google tools and Chrome extensions, and it just embedded right in Google, or they work with Google tools. So for those of you that are Google schools, we do a lot of trainings. We have boot camps to prepare you to take and pass the level 1 and level 2 certified educator certifications. They are excellent trainings, whether or not you ultimately want to take those certifications or not, because they really teach you how to take full advantage of the Google apps, free tools that are available to you for your classroom. And I can't tell you how many people have been in these trainings and even already have their certifications, but they still learn so much, and they're just so glad that they're much better equipped to use those tools available. So that's another service that we offer. And then, of course, don't forget to register for next month's free webinar. It will be on December 12th at 4 p.m. And the topic is implementing technology in the K-5 classroom. So we look forward to seeing you again next month. And until then, have a wonderful Thanksgiving.